Woody, thank you. Kyle Krabs, the host of Locked On Fins and A to Z Sports NFL analyst, joins us this morning. And so I'm not sure where to start, but man, you got me last night on potentially just how bad the dead cap money can be, meaning off your whatever the salary cap is, 280, 209. I don't know if it hits 300 million. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but you could lose a lot of that money and not be able to use it on your team. It's just gone. Very frustrating what that number could be.
Yeah, it's, right now the Dolphins have about 34 and change for 2026. That's names like Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith and Teron Armstead, with how they processed his retirement post June 1st this year, even though he announced in April that he was retiring. So those are some of the big ones there. It's been reported and should be expected that the Dolphins do not have Tyreek Hill's contract extend beyond the start of the league year, in which another $11 million in salary for next year would guarantee. So that's going to be 26, 28. I forget the exact number off the top of my head. On top of that, 34. You're probably not going to have Bradley Chubb on the contract. He's due a $31 million cap charge, and like 21, 22 million of that is salary that you could save, but you restructured his contract several years, so all that money is going to accelerate up in the form of dead cap, and that would include if they were to find a trade partner and trade Bradley Chubb today. Most of that dead cap would accelerate to 2026. So the Dolphins are going to have a very realistic chance to break the all-time record for dead cap in a single season. That's the bad news. The 49ers have that right now this season, and it's about $103 million. Ooh. I would expect the Dolphins will surpass that. It's probably going to be a third to 40% of their salary cap next year, and that's why I think getting these draft picks,
so important.
What they got for Jalen Phillips, is really important for cost control players that have upside and just aren't UDFAs and veteran minimum salary players, right? So I think that's really important, and I think the good news is on the other side of 2026, if you do this, you're going to have a whole lot of spending power because you're going to have taken your bad medicine next year. But that makes the draft and who you have making these draft picks that you're now trying to acquire really essential for what the floor is of the 2026 team and the foundational year of a new vision.
I want to ask you about, we've been talking about this a little bit. Austin Jackson has just missed so many games. I don't know when he's coming back. We only got 8 games left. But he has missed a ton of games, a guy that you gave a second contract to be, and a former first-round pick to be your right tackle. How long do you go with this before even – I mean, at some point he's going to say, I'm healthy, ready to go, but it's just 15 games in 2022, 8 in 2024, missed the second half of the year, and so far 8 this season after just playing in the opener. What do you do going forward?
Yeah, I don't think you can rely on Austin to be your starting right tackle next year. It's just an unfortunate reality of trying to kind of phase out some of the injury management players and mitigate risk. And that was a big part of the Grier build, was if we feel like we can get value and there's risk, well, there's 100% injury rate in football eventually. So surely it won't break bad on us at every turn. And in some of these cases, it broke bad on him in every turn. And Austin's one of those that it's a shame because he's turned into a good player when he's on the field.
Right.
But to your point, it's just, that's such a critical spot. It's a premium position, an offensive tackle. You're trying to develop some young guys there on the other side of the line, but the way that the math changes and how you call your protections, if you could trust a guy or not. So I don't think you can rely on Austin to be an unchallenged starter for you in 2026, and they could save a few $1 million in cap space, but that's another one of those names. If you moved on, you're talking more than $10 million in dead cap if you did it pre-June 1st, and I'd probably do that if you could find a partner to trade for him, or if you needed to, just kind of say, hey, we're going to flush the system of all the second contracts and mature contracts that we feel like aren't going to be a piece of this puzzle. Now's the time to go.
Hey, Kyle, you expect more moves before 4 o'clock this afternoon?
I'd be surprised if they didn't get something else, just because when you're willing to pay a portion of a salary to buy up a draft pick, it kind of tells you where the headspace is at. It's like, hey, let's maximize our opportunities here, even if it comes at the expense of the Dolphins are paying like $5.1 million of Jalen's remaining salary this year. Damn. I really didn't have too much of an issue with paying to buy up the draft pick just because of exactly what we're talking about. You're not going to have a ton of spending power next offseason anyway. You're going to have a bunch of dead cap money. You're probably going to have more players that you had a portion of a salary that was guaranteed to that aren't going to be on the roster. You did that with Jalen Ramsey to get out of that situation. There's no sense clinging on to good economic value when you're literally just trying to get your ducks in a row and get out of commitments and get lined up to have a successful build in the future. So if $5 million was the difference from the Dolphins getting a late 4 versus a top 100 pick for Jalen Phillips,
yeah,
I think that's small potatoes versus what's on deck for this team this offseason with the contracts they're going to be moving and getting out of. So that I was totally fine with that, but that's just how I personally view it.
Yeah, no. So this whole thing with a salary cap, just educating people on what we're looking at. I guess Stephen Ross signed off on all these moves that have happened, right? When we were going for it, and we're going to trade, and we got all these high draft picks that we drafted in the first and second round, and now they're going into. They've been around a couple years, along with a big free agent class led by Tehran coming in at left tackle, and then we made 3 or 4 big trades that they were just going for it, and they knew this day was coming, right?
Yeah, and I think you look at a team like the Detroit Lions. They had a very similar, like, we're going to add a whole bunch of draft capital, we're going to add a bunch of young talent, and then we're going to decide who we're going to pay, and we're going to pay guys on rookie contracts. I mean, they paid everybody on that roster that's a cornerstone player, but they didn't do the thing where they skipped 2 drafts and didn't draft anybody and brought in players at that expense for, like, market reset, record-setting contracts.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest exception I have with how the previous build turned south was you either got impatient or you got starry eyes with some big names and you tried to take the shortcut. As compared to if you talk about building a sustainable winner, sustainable winners don't trade 9-10 draft picks for 2 players and pay them an annual average salary in excess of $50 million.
I have a theory on that. A lot less pressure on a GM when you don't have to make those picks and you can just know what you're getting coming in from somebody else's team.
I don't doubt that. But if you listen to any one of the historically stable organizations in the league, they don't operate like that. And that's the risk you take. And when you go for it, you better win. And if you win, nobody's going to ask any questions on the other side of it. They're going to say, hey, that's the cost of winning, right? Because with Les Snead with the Rams, it was real cute to have the F them picks coffee mug because he traded all his draft picks and got some guys in. But they were 4 seed. They made a run to the Super Bowl, and they won it. So nobody cared on the other side of it. They got the benefit of the doubt. They changed their process. They got a bunch of young guys in there. And then they've had success developing those players. But if you don't have that over-the-hump moment, then everybody's going to look at it exactly how everybody looks at how the Dolphins did it. And they're going to say, man, the juice was not worth the squeeze here.
Yes, no question. By the way, I hope it turns out like it did for the Rams because the Rams hit like 2 years of unbelievable drafts. They really have. I don't know what this year's is doing, but the 2 previous years were strong, seeing those first couple of picks from Florida State to some of those other guys and the secondary full of rookie free agents playing at a high level. That thing has been incredible to get them, again, one of the best teams in football. The Rams are loaded, and a lot of that's right through that draft. The draft can work is my point. It definitely can work. Hey, so on top of everything else, I want to get your take on the biggest topic, and that's Tua. Going forward, I've been telling everybody he's going to be here in our starter this year, and he's going to be here, and he's going to be the starter next year. You agree?
I think it depends on what other dominoes ultimately decide to fall. I'm inclined to believe that, yes, he's going to finish the season as the starting quarterback just because of the money that's involved. Do you change head coaches? What kind of hardship do you have in finding desirable candidates for the GM spot? You know, if a GM comes in and says, hey, you're saddling me with Mike McDaniel and a quarterback that is on a mature contract. I know he's not going to be what we build with moving forward. I have a hard time with that. They have flexibility with personnel where if they wanted to take their lumps and do what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson, they could do it. You don't want to flush that money down the toilet, but it's like we're talking about with paying salary for Jalen Phillips, right? It's an unfortunate reality. And I think everybody probably looks at where this thing is headed and says the long-term answer for the starting quarterback of the Miami Dolphins at this point moving forward, if we're going to be a successful team, is probably not going to be Tua Tagovailoa. So I think the money makes it most likely that what you're saying is true, but I wouldn't dismiss anything because I think the rest of this power structure and how it shakes out as far as where there's new changes, if you're hiring a new GM and a new head coach, they may just want to come in and say, hey, I don't want the distraction of it next year. If we're bad enough, and I think if they're hiring a new head coach, that means they lose enough games to be in a position to potentially draft one of the top guys in this year's class. I wouldn't dismiss that as a possibility.
I don't know how much you've looked at it. Tease me with, from what your eyeballs have seen on Saturday, who's the best quarterback coming out in this draft? As of right now, who would be the number one guy?
I think the most clear projection is probably Fernando Mendoza, who's a South Florida product, playing at Indiana.
You just made his dad, Baptist Health doctor, very happy. That was Dr. Mendoza. You're welcome. By the way, that kid got so much better. My God. You realize he walked on a cow, sat there behind those knuckleheads out there for a bit till he got a chance, and now he has just gotten so much better. My God, it's crazy.
And he's smart as hell. You know, he was an Ivy League commit first before he goes to Cal. So Ivy League and Cal Berkeley are the first two schools on this stop. And then he goes to Indiana. They don't run they run an offense where I see enough NFL translatable reps where I don't have a lot of questions. But they do run like an RPO offense that has some lower stress throws that put a lot of stress on the defense because of the spacing of the college game. But I think Dante Moore from Oregon can have something to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really from there a question of whether or not one of these really young guys like Lenora Sellers or Ty Simpson from Alabama probably has the most NFL translatable tape.
He looks
and is
good.
Operating
yeah.
At a very high level pre-snap, but he's got like 10 career starts. And that's where you start asking questions. And is it a good thing that maybe there's not a 2020 NFL draft where there's going to be like 5 guys that are drafted as highly coveted starting quarterbacks? Does that help Ty Simpson decide to come out, or does he view his own individual case and say, I need another season's worth of starts, I should go back?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how like Dante Moore and Ty Simpson are the ones that I think can be in that upper echelon conversation with Mendoza in this year's class.
Kyle, I'm running a little long here, but I do want to ask you, because you deal with fans every day like everybody else. What do you tell when you do your podcast? What do you tell the fan base right now with 8 games left and what's going on here on the trade deadline today? What's your message?
Yeah, I'm interested to see young guys play. I want to see who gives a rip. You know, I want to see who's improving on a week-by-week basis, because this journey now, going back to square one with a decision maker atop the organization, it's about what pieces do we have? Who do we feel like we can build around? Who do we feel like we want to give competition to and a chance to continue to develop? And where do we have nothing? Yeah. And this is not a one-year fix. No. And it doesn't have to mean that it's not enjoyable if you go about it with embracing the process of building a team and not taking shortcuts and really getting into the weeds on what that can look like.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you coming on as always, man. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Fins and A to Z Sports NFL coverage.